Hello, and welcome back to the Game Room. The PlayStation is no stranger to incredible game experiences, but what about incredibly creative uses for the accessories you use on a daily basis? As developers kept pushing the boundaries of what they could do with what they had access to, quite a few of those results were pretty darn amazing. I wanted to take this video to appreciate some of my favorite uses that have involved the accessories for the original PlayStation system. Number 1. The controller swap in Metal Gear. Minor spoilers ahead for a 20-year-old game. It's really hard to do a creative type list and not include Metal Gear Solid. Among the crazy things it does, probably the craziest is breaking the fourth wall in order to defeat a video game character. During the fight with Psycho Mantis, the terrifying villain boasts that he can read your mind and make every move you make. As the fight progresses, he really does dodge everything you throw at him. As it turns out, he's just reading your controller inputs. If you unplug controller 1 from port 1 and plug it back into port 2, it will allow you to take Psycho Mantis by surprise and finish the fight. Number 2. Memory card sharing saves between games. Sharing save data of your favorite games is pretty common in the PlayStation era, but what was also interesting was how developers leveraged that newfound freedom. The memory card itself was like a library card, and properly wielded could provide extra excitement and playtime out of a video game depending on what you checked out. The memory card was home to many nifty little touches, like memory save icons that changed based on your play data, or even on what card slot you were saving in. But the real fun came into play with the actual save data. EA jumped at the chance to double sales by allowing NCAA fans to upload their college player data into that year's Madden, creating a unique and very real personal fantasy draft. Metal Gear sneaks in here again as the already mentioned Psycho Mantis also reads your memory card to see what other Konami games you've played. Atlus's interesting role-playing game Karsha allowed players to trade items between each other. Even Suikoden 2 unlocked extra story sections if it detected save data from the original. It was a glorious time to be a gamer since you could quite literally share your adventures and achievements with others. Number 3. The missing foot pedal in Time Crisis. Namco's Time Crisis was a hell of a good time in the arcades, and I was one of the happiest folks on the planet when the PlayStation version was announced. I was so eager to have it I plunked down the money for the import with the sexy black gun con. The catch being that in the arcade, Time Crisis had a foot pedal you would press to bring you out of cover, and if you stepped off of it, put you back in cover. The home version required that you press a button on the gun con to get the same effect. At least, that's what you had to do until a curious gamer plugged in controller 2, and sure enough, pressing the controller button also performed the action. The revelation meant that if you plugged your steering wheel into the system, you could then use the actual gas and brake pedal in place of the arcade pedal. The trick caught on so much that third-party accessory makers started selling their own dedicated pedals and combo gun packs. Even today, as long as you have the CRT to do it, playing Time Crisis properly is a hell of a good time, and provides that arcade feeling you don't really get anymore in the modern era. Number 4. Multiplying the field. Wireless controllers are a blessing in the modern era, but they can be damn expensive. Back in the PlayStation days, for the most part, you only had access to quarter controllers, which means when playing with multitaps got incredibly messy with 8 to 10 cords lying across the floor. Worse, few people had the money to support having 8 controllers and 2 multitaps. Which is where developers' codemasters come into play with an ingenious idea: rotating the controller. In Micro Machines, 2 players can share one controller. The up and down, and then cross and triangle become the left and right directions for either player. The game automatically presses gas for both people. By doing this, you could instantly turn a 2-player game into a 4-player game, and then the 4-player game into an 8-player game. It's an instant party game, and even more fun if you divide the group into 2 teams, where each team has 1 person per controller. If you have the original hardware and the people to play, I highly recommend it. Lastly, the Justifier in Silent Hill. Konami's light gun is the Justifier. While us American folk got the bright green mold with the Justifier name emblazoned on it, our Japanese counterparts got a very different looking product. Their light gun was molded in a beautiful deep dark blue and was labeled as the Hyper Blaster. Now, if you never knew that fact but the words Hyper Blaster sound vaguely familiar, it's because you played Konami's excellent Silent Hill game. The in-game Hyper Blaster was a laser gun that the protagonist could use if the player successfully beat the game twice, with specific requirements in each playthrough. The Hyper Blaster would be readily available in the inventory on the 3rd playthrough of the next Fear mode. At least, that's what you had to do if you didn't have the actual real-world Justifier or Hyper Blaster. Plugging in the real-world light gun into the second controller port and then pressing start on a brand new game would automatically unlock it in-game. While this would be the first time Americans would be able to use a real-world object in their video game, Japanese gamers were doing it 3 years earlier with ZXD, The Legend of Plasma Light. That game allowed you to build interchangeable models and plug them into the system to fight, like Skylanders. I covered ZXD in the 20th anniversary video, which I'll link in the description below. Check that video out for more cool info on just how far ahead the PlayStation really was for its time. And that leaves us for that. It is really good to be back on YouTube. I know it took a month to get this out, but obviously if you guys are paying attention, the site, yada, yada, yada. With the majority of holidays and birthdays and stuff like that, things should be back to normal, 2-week schedule here on YouTube. I've got a whole bunch more games to upload to the website. If I can get a couple more games ahead of schedule, there's going to be a really nice buffer space, and within that buffer space I'll probably be doing more stuff for redump.org and getting more of the older pages from our original reboot of the site finally back on site. So that said, guys, have a great week. I will see you later, and as always, take care. Play games.